Hey there, this is Alex Krems. Happy New Year from Hong Kong. Just want to make sure we're actually live here. So if a few people can type type in here whether or not you can see me, please go ahead and do so. I understand there's a bit of a delay, but I want to make sure we're on and all the technical difficulties are worked out and you can hear me. Can hear and can see. Okay, well, that's the first challenge. Thanks very much, guys, for confirming. Good, we're all on. So, as I mentioned, I'm in Hong Kong. It's Chinese New Year here. Why don't, as we get started here, please feel free to let me know where some of you are logging in from and where you hail from. It's always good to know. We've got people from all over the world. Meanwhile, a little bit about myself. Quick intro. I'm a new coach with Just One Dime. I have been creating and selling product all over the world for the last 20 years. An example of something that I've built and created in the mid to late 90s, I started building with Best Buy or for Best Buy label program. This was before it was ever called Insignia. It was called KLH. We took this speaker brand from California and we slapped it on the product, and with a lot of hard work, and it became very successful. It got up to about $50 million per year. At that time, I was working for RCA, and we really had a good run. But Best Buy noticed $50 million a year, and then they took it over. They opened up an office in Shanghai, and the rest is history for them. They became Insignia and Rocket Fish and many other brands. I also did some private label for, I left RCA at that time, started my own company. This is in 2003 here in Asia, in Hong Kong, and started a private label for AFIS, which is Army Air Force Exchange Service. They have giant shops on the bases all over the world. We built a private label for them on plasma TVs and DVD players and got $1 million. And again, the management said, okay, we can do this ourselves. Okay, fine. So this is a little bit of the experience that I've had in working with brick and mortar. And throughout that progress, I've always been working for myself as an entrepreneur. I've built several businesses, and I've always been part of e-commerce as it has progressed. I've sold to Amazon a number of times through different brands. And now we get to the last 5 years or so where Seller Central and seller accounts and the ability to be an individual entrepreneur is really taking place and is making millionaires all over the world. And not just millionaires, people who are getting the satisfaction from building their business happen for themselves, their family, their loved ones. This is truly a remarkable opportunity. I'm sure you agree. That's why you're here. So what we're going to talk about today is differentiation. The subject is differentiate or die. Where did that come from? When I first looked at some of the course material within the Just One Dime program, I immediately latched on to the the practice of differentiation. In my mind, it came from a book that I read many years ago. Let me see, it's got a mirror image. It's called Differentiate or Die. This is really one of the product manager's handbooks, and it's critical to differentiate in any product to be able to recognize why you have value. And it all comes down to value. If you have no value, what are you doing in the marketplace? Your product doesn't move, and that's always a disaster. So you've got to be able to differentiate. So that's where we're coming from. Just a little bit about some of the people that are here. We've got DJ Martin from Idaho. We've got Alberta. We've got I'm hearing from Vietnamese New Year in Virginia. That's great. Firecrackers for Chinese New Year, I hope. We've got California, Oregon. We've got Austin, Texas. That's good. We've got some from the head office. So I'm going to turn on a slide here. Let's make sure this is working for everyone. Present to everyone. Okay, so I've got it. It looks like it's sharing. And we've got Stockholm, Sweden. That's always good to get a European on board here too. So if somebody can see the screen again, please let me know as well. I'm going to proceed. Let's jump in here, guys. So what we'll cover today. Oh, good. We can see the screen. So I'm going to go a bit on mindset. Why? Because it helps get the juices moving in your head in terms of where are we? If this is a new subject to you, then we want to be able to give you a place to start. And then, of course, we need to get practical. We can't just live in theory all the time. So mindset, I'm going to give you some examples. We're going to talk a little bit about where is the purchase decision being made, which is, of course, in the mind. We'll talk about perceived value and real value, ways to differentiate. This is a bit theory. I'll call it mindset. Then we'll move straight into practical, which I'll begin it with a little bit of where to start. This is the find part of the course, and this is a find workshop that we're focusing on. So we'll start with a bit. Then we'll move into differentiate by solving problems and go to the review research tool, which most people are familiar with. But this is our key way to differentiate. And then a little bit about how to check if your differentiation is actually adding value. And then we'll move into questions. So without further ado, let me turn off my presenting and get back to my face. So a little bit about some examples. And this is really, these are not necessarily case studies. These are classic examples of how people and businesses have successfully differentiated. And I want to go big first, again, to get the juices flowing. I'll start with MP3. MP3 was a technology that was patented by many different companies, specifically by RCA, of which I was working for in the 1990s. And we all sat around the table. I was a product manager at the time, and we all had it all worked out in terms of how it was going to be the next big thing. And we got to the point of making product. A company called Rio was out there first. Some of you may remember that product, but nothing really happened. We got the product out there. It sold, these are to big retailers, maybe 20,000 pieces, which is nothing. So we're all kind of thinking, well, this is not a big deal. And then Apple comes out with the iPod. And at the time, Apple was not such a big deal. They had gone down significantly. They had come out with some transparent Macs. They were not doing great. They took a product that had 8 buttons. The MP3 player that we did had 8 buttons. It was hard to use, and people were confused about how to use it. And they made, well, this is the iPhone, but they made 1 button. At the time, we were like, what are they thinking? But I'll never forget getting my first iPod and starting to work it. And I was like, this thing works great. So my point here is that you can differentiate by decreasing the feature buttons. Um, and the rest is history. We all were toast. We never we never got into the MP3 business, and Apple owns it today for the most part. Then I'll take a look at things that are difficult to differentiate, things that are commodities. So coffee. Coffee is just like soybeans or apples or wheat. It is a commodity. How do you make it different? Some people try with a brand, Tasters, Folger's Choice, various brands. There's not much difference, and some taste issues. So you probably know where I'm going with this, but put ourselves 20 years ago, and a company called Starbucks said, we're going to charge more money for a cup of coffee. Some people today won't, still will not buy a cup of coffee for $5. That's not a bad idea. I happen to like Starbucks, but the point being is that they went very niche. They said, we are going to go only for product that is $3 a cup of coffee at the time. So this is really going from the whole world of coffee down to one very specific segment of the market, and they in turn made that market. So this is whenever you start feeling to yourself, well, how far down can I niche? And if I niche down and I increase the price, is that going to be an issue? We'll discuss the price issue later, but it's always a good idea to try to think in terms of making it an even smaller category for people to look at, an even smaller product range for people to look at. And whenever I doubt myself, I always think of the Starbucks analysis, because it's expensive coffee and I love coffee. So another one I'll go into, and this will be the third, and I'll leave it at that, is toothbrushes. So we used to have flat toothbrushes. There was nothing special about them. And then somebody came out with the Reach that bent the toothbrush a bit. And it was a little bit better, and you could push it and get a little bit better angle on it. And then it really exploded in terms of the different products on the market. A little bit of background on that. There are companies that are just super companies like Procter and Gamble that have amazing product managers, and that's what they do. They're professional, and they sit around the table and get paid for coming up with all these ideas about how to diversify something like a toothbrush. And so they put, little rubber things on the grips. They put Oral-B made you might remember, a blue dye in the brush that told you when it was done. There's been so many different things that happen on a toothbrush, and it's such a simple product. So whenever you think I cannot differentiate, think of the toothbrush. I mean, they're still coming up with ways of, and they will continue to do so. And this is really good. And it creates so much product space and so much choice. It serves the consumer well. Consumers are happy with what they're getting. These are just some good examples to kind of put your mind around what is differentiation. Okay. So to kind of move us in the direction towards, I'm going to put our screen back up here to share. Select that, get us back up here. So here's my 3 examples: MP3 players, coffee, toothbrushes. So the process, and this is what I'm getting at, is to niche down. The market will always is can make the fragment happen, or you can follow along with other people who are fragmenting. This may seem counterintuitive. Why? Because it feels like you're going after a smaller market. I mean, if you move toward coffee towards a more expensive part of the market, you feel like you might be covering less. That's why I say counterintuitive. It's not true. You are actually creating people. You're either creating people or you're serving people who are unserved. And that's what we're trying to get to, people who are unserved. This is a natural progression in every market. So it's really healthy for you to, if you're new to this, to look at different products that you like and think about how they've changed over the years and what has happened to them. It can go, usually we go in product improvement and we add features or we decrease features, like in the case of the iPhone, and make it less feature rich, but more specific to serve that unserved group of the population. Then what happens after that is the market consolidates. Procter & Gamble comes in and buys, and others come in and buy, and Starbucks goes and buys their competitor, and then it reconsolidates. And this process is constantly going. Thank goodness for us that it does. So moving on, where is the decision made to buy? I know you all know this, but for the sake of the discussion in terms of differentiation, let's bring it in that scope. So within our Amazon buyer, they are going to their computer and they are typing in their keyword. And so, for example, somebody types in sneakers. There are literally thousands and thousands of sneakers. So they have to think of a more specific keyword. Red sneakers. Red. Okay, they get a whole nother several different pages. Then another, air, whatever it may be. But the fact of the matter is that this is the point. People are looking at your product thinking, what is the keyword? And so the keyword is relevant to your differentiation. So going to perceived and real value. So this is the meat of the course in the meat of the workshop in terms of where are we going to focus on our differentiation? And how are we going to dissect it so that we can actually start? So let's define what is perceived value and what is real value. Perceived value is what we have when we look at Amazon and we see the product listing. And that it can occur in 1 to 2 seconds for somebody who's skilled at trying to buy on Amazon, or they can go back and forth, back and forth. They can look at various parts of your page. They can look at EBC. They can look at your description. They can look at your ranking, depending on how savvy they are as buyers. Most people are just looking quickly. They want to get in and get out fast. So your perception at that point to your customer is really important. So what is this? This is your logo design. If it's on, maybe on your second photo, maybe you have your packaging on your third photo, depending on how you laid it out. You have product color, you have packaging again, you have your company story. Not that you're writing something about your company story, but who are you? So these are all examples of perceived value. Real value is the actual product itself. So this is how well does the product work, its performance. what are its features and its specifications. As you start reading the bullet points, which is still perception, but now we're into real in terms of what you actually get. So, and then the design of the product itself, sometimes that's also on perception because they see it very quickly. But in terms of when you get it and how you feel it, going back to the old Apple, I mean, these products, the amount of research that went into how to shape these products is extraordinary. And then, of course, the size, the materials that went into the product, whether or not it's in multiples. So a screen protector usually comes in threes, or do you have bundles? So a screen protector plus something else. So those are all real value, something that you really get. And I'll give, for those that are struggling with the notion of what is perception, I'll give you an example. It's a bit of an extreme example, but because it doesn't really apply to what we're doing, but I'll use it just to, again, help center the idea. Within perception, some businesses will license a character. And you see this is an extreme example because none of us are going to contact Disney and try to license Mickey Mouse. But you put that Mickey Mouse on the toothbrush, and now you have a huge audience, much bigger than what you were doing before. That is perception. Unless you think Mickey Mouse is real, because it could be real. But the point being that the product doesn't, if this is the toothbrush, has Mickey Mouse on it, the product doesn't work any differently if Mickey Mouse is on it. It still brushes my teeth. So that's something that can kind of help you divide the two. So this is really something that helps dissect what we're trying to achieve here. I want to show you the presentation here so you'll know you can go back to it. You don't have to worry too much about taking notes. This will be for you. Here we go. Okay, so this is the, let's go to here. So I've taken the Echo from Amazon. So of course, Amazon's done an incredible job with their the perception. It's their website. They've done a really nice job, of course, with the listing itself. And in terms of real value, you can see their package. It's a nice package. It's not the best, but it's good. A little bit of a note, sidebar here, with regard to packaging for folks who are new. It's a really good idea to think about doing your own package, even when the MOQs are low. You do have to hire a graphic artist to help you with the package. The factory will give you a die line, which means the way that the box is cut when it's flat. And I would expect to pay around $1 to $2. It can be a lot less if it's very small product, but around that. And that does add a lot of value. The out-of-box experience is very much enhanced, and they feel like they've really got something. You can look at this particular insert. Not an insert, but it protects the product when it's shipping. It's really nicely done. I mean, you can see through it. But how much do you think that costs? 20 cents? 10 cents? It's not an expensive thing. And they just took some time and some care to do it. Of course, Amazon has plenty of money to do that, but it doesn't mean that we as sellers with less resources can't do the same thing. The product itself is extremely well done. So what I'm getting at here, you can see here these little bars I made here on this graphic. And some of the things are expensive. Of course, licensing a brand would be expensive. There's certain things that are not expensive. Coming up with a clever name, doing a little bit of artwork on your logo. These are the things that we can afford. In terms of working on the product and real value, doing a whole new design and a whole new tool and a whole new R&D and all of that with regard to something like a voice activated product from Amazon. Okay, that's really, but the other part, which I was just talking about in terms of making your own package, which of course your factory will help you do, refer to the build program in terms of more detail on that. But it's affordable and it makes a big difference. What I'm getting at and showing you this chart is at some point the two merge, and you have to have a balance between the two. If you just have perceived value, but the product you get is not that great, you're not going to get a lot of rebuys and your reviews will be terrible. And vice versa. If you make the greatest product, but you don't tell anybody about it, you're not going to sell any. So all of this is intuitive and logical, but important to note. So moving towards differentiation. Ways of differentiating. So I'm going to go through a few here that are big picture, and then I'm going to move to the two that I want to highlight. But this is important to rule some out. Price. Price, I will argue, is not a differentiator. Why? For us, for Amazon sellers who are private labelers. Because if you have a really high price, you probably need to spend a lot on advertising to bolster that brand. Think of all the brands you know that are very, very high end. Louis Vuitton, Mercedes. I'm sure you can think of a few. Roll budgets are huge. So, especially when you don't want to think of something that's a really crazy high price above your competitors. That's not differentiating. That's making a problem for yourself. Too low. If your mindset is I'm going to be a certain percent below the median, you can be some. I mean, if you're a really good buyer and you got a really good deal, okay, you got a good price, but that is a lose money business, especially with what we're trying to do and how we have to launch and promote our products. So don't think of price as a differentiator. First to market. First to market, everybody loves to say in the marketing world, we've got to be first to market. Within our Amazon selling sphere and what we're trying to do, I'm not a big believer that that's a good idea, because people are looking for a keyword, as we mentioned. If your product has to be landing on the wrong keyword, meaning it's not the actual product they're buying because it's new and meaning a new segment, think battery chargers, power banks. Somebody came up with a new type of battery charger. Well, if it's right next to power banks, if somebody typed in power bank and they're looking for power bank and they get something else in sponsored ads and they click on it, they're just going to bounce right back off and go back to power bank. So this is really hard. Okay, some people are going to buy it, but again, it's hard. And when we're starting here and when we're selling on Amazon and want to make some money in a reasonable amount of time, first to market is not necessarily the best way to go. It can differentiate for people who have money, and for a very special product. Um, Moving to trendy. I think this is, of course, good, but beware. It's a caution. Uh, Again, you don't want to be first, and you don't want to miss the peak. You miss the peak, you're sitting on inventory. So, beware. Um, if you see exponential growth in a trend, don't do it. Get out. In my opinion, it's dangerous. Fidget spinners. At a certain point in that curve, it's growing exponentially, not just by a small amount, and it's going to collapse. It's not who has a fidget spinner now, who has a hoverboard now. They all collapse. So, in terms of creating a stable start to your business, you don't want to be overdoing the trend. Now, there's certain trends that are good. I was watching some interesting information about a few months back, or probably a year back, about unicorn trends. Probably some of you probably watch the same information in YouTube video. Yeah, that's real, and it's going slowly, and you can do Google Trends and can look at it. That's really good and useful. So there's a couple other areas that I want to mention that are really good, that should be considered for very specific reasons. Market leader is very powerful differentiator. Our goal is to be number one on page one, but here we are talking about starting new product. So we're obviously not going to be page one, first position. But we want to, when we're defining our perceived value, we want to look like the leader, look like. And it's not copy, but keep that in mind in terms of your differentiation plan. You really do want to be a market leader, and you want to be thinking long term. So that's an important facet. Market specialty. This is a really key issue as well. Think about we need to niche down. So think about craft cheese. Is it good cheese? But cheddar cheese from Wisconsin's a heck of a lot better. And so French something cheese from I don't know where, but you get the point. Is that when you niche down and you go towards a specialty, this is differentiation. A last point I'll make is heritage. So if you are claiming a certain heritage, again, this is perception, because you can say, I'll give you an example. Germany is well known for engineering and beer. Swiss is well known for watches and banks. Italy is well known for design and fashion. France is well known for food and wine. New Zealand's well known for lamb and kiwis. These are things that you can think about when you're making your logo, you're making your name, trademark, you're working on your story. And if you incorporate that, that does become differentiation. So what I really want to move towards here is get this up. So here's the chart. Price, first to market, I made red. Just beware. Trendy, the latest stuff. Could be good, also beware. Market leader, market specialty, heritage, good way to go. Here's where we want to be. Right product, right price, and to solve a problem. If there's one thing to take away from this workshop today, is that right product and right price is the key. So this is what every good buyer, every good merchant, and what you need to become and be is to find this. And it's not magic. It's really studying your market, really working on your differentiation plan, and niching down. The two things I want to say about this in terms of right product, right price. You don't want to be the most expensive. You don't want to be the cheapest. You want to be somewhere in the middle. That's really key. And your perceived value needs to be higher. So think about again where you are. You're on the page of Amazon and you've got many, many different choices. So how are people going to know that you're different? Your photo, your story, in terms of your title, that's it. You just get your title. If they click on you, then you get a little bit more. You don't get much. So you gotta be the right price, or they're not going to look at you. Again, you don't want to be too cheap, though. We just talked about that. In terms of solving a problem, I'll share a little story with you. A product that I worked on for a company called Nyko. They're a game accessory company. They were working on products, accessories for the PS3. And when the PS3 first came out, it was with Blu-ray discs. And Blu-ray discs were really hot. Not the disc, but the machine that spun it. And so Sony couldn't actually launch the PS3 for a long time. But they finally got it all solved and worked on it. But this company called Nyko just made a metal box after launch of the PS3. They made an accessory that was a black metal box that had a fan in it, and the fan pulled the heat out. And they sold millions of pieces. This was solving a specific problem, heat, and that was what they had identified. So all of these things are you might say, are just talk. So let's bring it into practical. We've worked on the theory, which is getting your ideas going, creative process. We refreshed a notion of what is differentiation, but this isn't what is going to accomplish your differentiation until you adopt a plan. Excuse me. So, and what is that plan, and where to start? So, I'll speak a bit, since we're in the fine section of this course. I'll speak a bit on how people start. Some people start with do what you love. Other people start with analytics and data. You know what kind of person you are. I will just say a word about it. I think that the best way to go is to have a balance of both. Especially when you're starting, you really do want to have something that you enjoy, but don't get hung up on it. Your data has to make sense. So let's move into data. So in this course, this one done course, you have the review research tool. You can download this from the JOD members website. And this is the product evaluation tool. It's the second tab. And let me jump out of this real quick. So a few words on reviews. Excuse me. So the reviews that we get access to in Amazon are really great. We used to not, when we were designing and developing product years ago, we would only get return reports. Return reports were what people had used as the reason for returning. And this is not with Amazon. So we would get these charts and they would show why somebody returned it. And it was very, very useful to help get the product quality going and get in the right direction, but wasn't that useful in terms of trying to design a new product. what we've got here on Amazon is exactly the information about what they like and don't like, and it's all over the place, and it's free. So this is what we need to use to differentiate the product. It's a resource there that is available for our exploitation. So this is something that I want to make sure that you're appreciating how useful this is. Um, so jumping back here, a few words on how to uh, select the reviews. You ought to go into a product listing page, and you can sort the reviews. I like to choose all critical. You can also see how many people have said that it's a useful or helpful review. So normally we try to get, depending on how much time you have, about 20 negative reviews. You can go a lot more if you'd like. They get really repetitive after a while. We focus on 2 and 3 star reviews. Try not to look at the 1-star reviews if you can help it, or let it not affect you, because some of those people may be just having a bad day or really like to gripe. The 2 and 3 stars are a really good place to mine for information. On the positive reviews, 4 stars is good. You can, of course, use 5 stars if you'd like. Here is differentiation by negative reviews. I've chosen a product here, beard grooming kit. And I've gone through and done it for our reference. Please go to the Just One Dime course and look at the second video in differentiation under Find tab. And Seth has walked through very clearly the best way to use the tool. And it's I won't reiterate that. But what I want to highlight here is how to differentiate. So on the negatives, you can see, let's see if I can select. So over here, there are 5 for missing parts. These are negative reviews. There's another for doesn't like the scent of the oil. And then there are 4 bad reviews for, and this is just out of 20, for the scissors are cheap. So definitely working on scissors is something you can do. Definitely, I'll change that word. As I was going through, I saw a variety of comments on what they didn't like about the oil smell. So this is somewhere that you can start to think about how you might do it. There's a case to be made that you should insert some type of essential oil that would have a scent, but then maybe people won't like scent on their beer. Anyway, I'm just kind of trying to get you going in that direction in terms of it could mean add a scent, or it could mean what's wrong with the scent that you have. Enough said. And obviously missing parts, they did a really bad job. So that's an easy place to improve. So that's something to consider. Moving to some of the single comments. Some of these I really don't have a strong feeling about. Of course, leaking, that's a real issue. But the carry bag too small, that's one guy. I'm not change everything just because one person said it. So you do need to apply some judgment here. It doesn't mean that whatever bad thing is said, you must go automatically like a robot and go fix them all. Because some of them, you need to apply some judgment. You need to do a cost. Is it really worth it? And this is, you're an entrepreneur. You have to make these decisions. Let's see. Make sure that's up there. So that's the negative reviews. Move to the positive reviews. So this is a, let's see how I want to say this. It's very, very clear that they liked the metal box with a hinge. That was something that was a big highlight for them. They also, but some of the other comments I just find interesting at this point. Affordable, unscented oil, they like that. Again, so we're getting into that scent discussion. This was the interesting one. Brush good for beard, close to the face. This might be a real opportunity to niche. And again, it's only one, but maybe people really like that type of brush. So it's just you got to dig down. You got to, order some products, look at them. But these are really great areas where you can start to differentiate. That's the point I'm trying to get to here. So back. So how to check if your differentiation is actually adding value? You'll note that we are oftentimes in our business saying, we really differentiated well. And I just caution your own judgment of how well you've differentiated. Because you really need to get opinions of others. No matter how smart you are, no matter who you are, you might be Steve Jobs, got to have other people criticize your work. So I would encourage you to, of course, do that. Here's a couple different ways to hit it. It'll be on the presentation you look at later, our Google Slides document. But here's 3 ways. Basic survey. Simulate a page 1. Cut and paste. Use Photoshop, or not even Photoshop. Use any program. Cut and paste. Make it look a little bit like a choice on a website, and ask people. That's kind of a low budget way to go. How many people to ask? I would ask at a minimum, and I know this is a lot, but it's worth it, 25, ideally 50. Why? Because a click-through rate on a product in Amazon needs to have, when you're working on things, you probably want to have about 30 to know if it's got some type of click-through rate. That's a really low figure, but at least you get some data. If it's lower than that, it's helpful, but it's not really trustable data. I'm sure there's a lot of opinions on that, but another way to do it, and this is a way that I like to do, is do it online. You can use social media, you can use WhatsApp, you can use Messenger with your friends. I mean, that's, instead of walking around and showing everybody, unless you live where everybody is, it's quite easy. You have how many contacts on your phone? Lots of people will help you do it. And that's, somehow engaging them. There are poll sites that are affordable. One is called PickFu. I have not, full disclaimer, I've not used them. I've looked into it. It looks affordable, but you can structure a decision and they will go out to a certain population and test it for you. So those are a couple ways to do it. I would encourage something so that you don't find yourself with something that's not really differentiated. A couple final thoughts, and then we'll jump to questions. Don't be intimidated by this subject. I know there's a budget here that, looking at things in terms of cost. Some people, there's intelligence issues in terms of, you talk about Steve Jobs or something like that, but no, anybody can do this. It does take a little bit of creativity, but you don't have to be, you need to follow a process that we're offering you here. And if you follow that process, a lot of information that you can analyze without being somebody who's a product guru. And so get rid of that notion, put it aside. It's not useful. It's not helpful. Come back to where it's something that you can do. And putting these charts together, like the review, is very, very possible. Learn the product. You really need to know everything about the product. You need to order the samples. You need to break them and challenge that product. And know every feature. I mean, that's such a basic thing, and I'll keep repeating that on different workshops. And my pet peeves is when I'm working with different buyers, and these guys are really high-level guys. They don't even know the features of their own product, and they're buying goods. With factories, when you come up with your differentiation plan, don't give up. Factories are lazy. They just want to sell you something, and they don't want to talk about your MOQ. Don't listen. Keep going. Keep going until you're satisfied. It's your money. It's not their money. And of course, there's things about relationship and how to handle, but I'm only talking about differentiation. Stick with the basics. Don't get too fancy until you really have a high confidence level. Every product has a product cycle. So you can look at any technology, any product, technology. I'm always technology. But it always goes in cycles, 1 year to 3 years. Watch that. As you get better at this, you'll see a lot of trends going. So those are some final thoughts. Next week, I will be teaching or leading the build workshop. I believe we'll probably work on product evaluations. So that would be how to break that product. Anyway, so that concludes my comments. I know I've taken an awful lot of time presenting, but I had a lot to say on differentiation. If there's any questions, I'm more than we have about 10 minutes or 8 minutes here to take questions. Blue Square Blog says, use social media influencers. Hallelujah, totally agree. That would be a great way to get feedback on what you're trying to differentiate. So totally agree. Well said. So if you have any questions, or if you have a product, we have 6 minutes. If you have a product that you want to talk about differentiating, we can crowdsource that information here with our group. A few words about when you're communicating with factories about how to get it right. And I'll give you an example on a product that I developed. I patented myself. Don't fall in love with your product. But it's still a good product. But I really wanted to get to market. I was so hungry to get to market. And the product had one fatal flaw. And that was that when it was being used, it was no longer portable. And it was a mobile phone accessory. So it works in an emergency, and that's what it was for. But people wanted to take it with them. And I remember sitting with the engineers, and they're saying, yeah, it can fall out. When you go portable, it can fall out, a certain part of the product. And I remember saying, but those people are stupid. Why are they going to use it when they're moving? They should use it when they are stationary. So this is me thinking how somebody's going to use it. I'm ignoring the advice of the engineers in the factory saying, I want to go to market. So again, it's a friendly reminder. You need to be that person. And I remind myself after years of experience doing this, that you need to follow that process. I should have said, okay, how are we going to keep the product together when it goes portable? And maybe it wouldn't have been solved. Some of the ideas were really redesigns, but it would have been good to try. So again, when working with suppliers, keep going, get another sample. Of course, that some things aren't as important. Is there minor cosmetic issues, what have you? We can discuss those in the build. So I'm not seeing any questions here. There are any. Let me see if we got any more. Probably I'm just talking too much. There are about the value of reviews. When I first came to Hong Kong, I was 26 years old, and I'm originally from Seattle. Oh, many are coming through now. And there was a guy from Sears who was very experienced in their returns. And he sat down with us and went through all of these charts. Got us to understand how those charts were being used and how valuable they were. And that was where I really, and he would say to us, don't ignore. We would say, oh, this comment doesn't have value because something. And he would say, no, you got to listen to all of these comments. That's important to have some judgment, but when people are commenting, they're commenting for a reason, and you have to honor that. So one differentiator, Fish Chase, good question. One differentiator or two or more. I would advise you go through the whole list of anything that is on the chart when I was showing you before. How many are coming through that have clusters of negative comments from various different customers. And you'll find missing products. That guy's got a real problem at his factory trying to get the product out the door correctly. But if you can get, I would say you want to get all of the comments that you can incorporate for the same price that you can. You need to maximize. So I can't really say this is the right number, but go back to, you want to have the right price. So the right price is, just pick a number, $19.99. Let's say 80% of the market is around $19.99 retail. And there's a couple people up at $29.99 brands. So you've got to be somewhere. You don't want to be too low. So you got to be somewhere around $19.99 with as much perceived value and real value that you can get, your bang for your buck. The more you get, the better. Again, it's a business. You got to balance. So that would be my comment on that. How do you know a differentiation is enough? That really does come back to looking at feedback from others. And it's hard to know yourself. But if you have decent judgment, you can look at the other products and say, am I really different? What value do I have? And it really comes down to value. And if you are equal to, here's a good way to think about it. You're going into markets by our guidelines that don't have more than 300 reviews or 400 reviews or, God forbid, 500 reviews. You're going in that market. So you when you come out, you've got 0 reviews. So why are they going to buy your product? Why would you buy your product? So this is really where it comes down to. And you've got to have some, I mean, at least a different color. I mean, why would they look at you? So it's hard to say what is enough, but you got to maximize too. So you're the entrepreneur. That's why we're selling on Amazon. We love doing it. And you get to see your results immediately. But you got to make those tough calls. At a minimum, you can upgrade packaging. You can make sure the quality is really good. You can do something with the design in terms of low cost. I'm not talking about change the tool, a little bit different. And maybe put your logo on the product itself. Don't know what the product is suited for that. But all of these things, and do it really well. This is also really important. We'll get into that in build. Don't be like a Chinese supplier that just throws it up there. Really finish. Follow the course that every step. And it's gonna, at least you become more bulletproof. They're not bulletproof. That's really misstating. You become a best in class. So I guess I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for coming to join this workshop today. Happy Chinese New Year to everybody out there that is celebrating the day from their suppliers. I am. And please look for me on Facebook in our Facebook group. I'm more than happy to answer questions on this. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.